This is the custom shop. All of these are one of a kind. Keo contacts us and tells us that he has a project and could he come to Dallas to chat with me.
Thank you for this great opportunity.
Pleasure.
Really appreciate it.
Keo is a magnificent custom builder. He's a great mechanic. He's a great racer.
I want to show my past work. This is called Cherry Blossom.
And this is the single engine.
Single engine.
Right. This is a beautiful bike.
Thank you. Next one is Gecko.
And that has two Honda CB750s. And the dream is to build a third one.
Yes.
Does the third motorcycle have a name? Is it Galaxy?
Galaxy.
Galaxy? Yeah. Okay.
This is the sketch. Same engine, CB750. 3 this time.
3 engines?
Yes.
Wow. Do you want to race this?
Of course.
Of course.
I want to race at the Bonneville 3 bike together.
So I think there's a lot of risk with Galaxy. 3 engines. It's not been done for like 50 years, right?
I don't think so.
Since the 70s.
I don't think so.
No. That appeals to me. You know, let's try to do something nobody else has done. I would be honored to work with you on this. Honored. Okay, let's do this. Let's do this.
Thank you.
Okay, let's do this.
Thank you very much.
This is my childhood dream.
Well, this is the place where dreams come true.
Older guy, let's face it. I've been doing what I do for a long time. I've always been a bit of a loner. You know, I just like keep to myself. And I think the reason I got into motorcycles because motorcycles represent a sort of individuality. I just did this because I was driven to do it. And I think that's maybe why I delved deeper into just creating and building things, because it was the one positive thing in my life. I made myself broke. I was living a rather meager existence. My electricity in my apartment was turned off. My cupboards were bare, the fridge was empty, there was nothing. I had so little money, it's like, so I've got to find something that I can share with my cat. So I lived on tuna for a while. I was sharing cans of tuna with my cat, I am not kidding. I got to a point where I didn't think about the future anymore. My last ditch thing was like, I always wanted to build this dustbin-styled Motor Guzzi race bike. I built the Ambassador. I got invited to the handbill show in Austin. I was invited and I was proud of what I did, I guess. And so I'm gonna go. I had to borrow money to get there. You know, I didn't go there with expectations to sell a motorcycle. It just goes to show you never know what's gonna happen, because then I met Bobby.
I went to college Didn't have any real direction, so I worked construction. And to be honest, I hated it. I hated every minute of it. It was a hard grind, and I was basically breaking even every year.
It almost felt like the feeling of like you're standing on a dock and there's a ferry that's slowly moving away.
I'd already been building bikes for about a year, and I hadn't sold any. Yeah, that was a bit of a reality check. It hit me that, I'd given it a shot, and it didn't happen. So, I'd actually put a date on it. I said on Monday, I'm gonna start looking for a job or look how to get back into construction. Yeah, it's like out of a Hollywood movie. Tuesday, the phone rang, and that was my first conversation with Bobby.
I'm now 72 years old, and you don't go through 7 decades without breaking a few dishes or having a few dishes broken over your head. There are broken pieces in almost every life. But the longer you go on, the more broken pieces you accumulate. I think that, like others who have suffered breaks, broken pieces, you try often in vain, but sometimes successfully, to fill the gaps. A lot of the people that I have relationships with today have been able to pursue their passion. Hard-driven individuals who are doing it for the sake of fulfilling a passion and sharing that passion with others. I think that if you either supply the gold to somebody to put in that crack, or somebody supplies the gold to put in your crack, there is this healing, and you ready yourself for the gold that can fill the cracks.
Death, adventure, sex, danger, freedom. These are all embodied in a motorcycle.
The uniqueness of a custom bike, most people find extremely attractive. All the blood, sweat, and tears that went into it, that alone is attractive.
Customizing a motorcycle, that to me is where expressiveness comes in. You can make anything. It does all the things that a motorcycle should do, but it looks like nothing before.
I've watched this industry for the last 24 years. We used to go to the magazine store and the cycle trader would come out. That's all we had.
There's a lot of people trying to make it in the custom motorcycle world, but there was no venue.
Maybe these couple of guys will take you to this show, or these couple of guys will take you to this show, which is still happening. But now you have this museum.
The Haas Museum is the first museum that I've ever seen that focused on custom motorcycles.
Bobby Haas has changed the world of custom motorcycles for sure, just through his enthusiasm. He's pushing builders to the utmost best, I think.
We were seeing the best work of what people thought they could do, and now we're seeing what's capable when you really have someone in their corner. That's the X factor.
Oh, there's no question that Bobby in a very short time has established himself as the most important collector and patron of contemporary custom motorcycle designs from around the world.
There's no one else in the world taking the art world and transferring it into the motorcycle world. No one's really doing it like the Haas Museum.
Welcome to the Haas Moto Museum.
Bobby has done a remarkable job curating that collection.
The first room is the largest room, and it's called History Hall.
It's a fully realized collection from the earliest motorcycles that tells the story of the form of the motorcycle over 150 years.
The second chamber, if you will, is called the racetrack, and it's obvious that these are racers. The motorcycles that turn me on the most are the ones where I can visualize the people behind the motorcycles.
He's kind of like this boyish enthusiasm for the form, for what he's collecting. I mean, he really loves the things he's doing.
We're crossing into the promised land now, which is called the custom shop.
The custom hall, I think, is really where the brilliance of that collection lies.
It's become this mecca.
Certainly the most profound collection of custom bikes in the world.
Really goes in a different direction from the traditional, very aggressive, macho direction of American-style custom motorcycles. Bobby's gone for something much more subtle, much lighter, with humor, and with no aggressiveness.
And all of this has been collected in the last 3 or 4 years. And many of them have been commissioned within the last 3 or 4 years.
Bobby asked Xingya, "What's your dream bike?" And that was a very rare question.
It's a dream to have a bike in a museum. That's the ultimate builder's dream.
All of this is still all hand designed. The concept has to carry out.
That certainly was true with the Kawasaki project. And now we're doing a Honda-based project.
It opens doors that we're not used to.
I remember a fellow whom I admired in the investment business down here in Texas. He said to me, "Bobby boy, if you always have a middle name in Texas. It's Billy Joe, Bobby boy." He said, "Bobby boy, if you ever get a chance to put on a bulletproof vest, you put it on and you never take it off." I was a total unmitigated disaster as a venture capitalist. I was in Cleveland, Ohio, which is not exactly the hotbed of creativity and finance. I formed a partnership in private equity with a gentleman here in Texas by the name of Tom Hicks. We had absolutely no money. We borrowed money to pay the light bill. That's not an exaggeration. And then we borrowed a lot of money to buy companies.
When employees at the 7-Up company go to work this morning, they'll be reporting to new owners.
We started to buy soft drink companies. We had a company almost half the size of Pepsi within 2 years. Then we ended up selling the lion's share of it, and that allowed us to make our fortune. That was our bulletproof vest. It's 1988, I'm 41 years old, and I'm where I thought I might be when I was 71 times 10. What do I do now? I'm gonna go to the office tomorrow, but why am I going to the office tomorrow? I'm like a rat in a maze. I don't know where else to go. You know, there's an old saying, you know how much money John D. Rockefeller left behind? And the answer is all of it. I said to myself, I need to look around for something else to do. Do something that is not connected to money. I started traveling to Africa. I thought on my first trip to Africa, I think I ought to get a camera so I can take some pictures. I met up with a professional photographer. I watched him, and I picked up a lot just watching him. And one day we took a helicopter together, took the doors off, strapped myself in, started leaning out the door. I was afraid of heights, and I'm leaning out the side of an open helicopter, and I'm loving it. And I said, I could do this. National Geographic had been publishing the finest photography that's ever been published since 1888. And I saw that aerial photography was very uncrowded, a very wide open niche. National Geographic never had an all aerial photographic book. The global head of photography at Nat Geo saw my work and said, I think we ought to do something together. What do you want to do? And I said, I want to do a Pan-Africa aerial book. Nobody's ever done that before. Through the Eyes of the Gods became a very large bestseller. So then we came back with Through the Eyes of the Condor of Latin America. That also did extremely well. So then we decided to do the Arctic.
He finished with business and he became an aerial photographer for National Geographic. And National Geographic has always set itself as a standard above which only the best photographers can live. And Bobby lived happily in that stratosphere of photography. No matter what he does it at a level of excellence that is just remarkable.
It's thrilling to be able to try one thing after another and to try to find a spot in each of these industries that somebody else hasn't gone after before. Try to collect the soft drink companies other than Coke and Pepsi under one umbrella. Try to be the first aerial photographer for National Geographic. Try to have a motorcycle museum that specializes in custom motorcycles. There's a reason somebody hasn't done it before, but until you bump into the reason, you might as well go for it. I can remember where I was when I took almost every photo published by National Geographic. And my mind was so focused. Group of flamingos off the coast of Mexico, and we were running out of fuel. And the pilot said, we got to get back. And as we were leaving, I looked back over my shoulder and I saw that the flamingos were coalescing in the shape of a flamingo. And I yelled, turn back, I got to get this shot. I took 10 seconds. And the pilot turned around, I hit that shutter button and it knocked off 6 shots. And when I looked at those shots, sure enough, it was a group of flamingos in the shape of a flamingo. It only took an extra 30 to 60 seconds and we made it back with the fuel. I remember exactly where I was when I took those photos. I've tried to go into one zone after another that I had no business being in. I bought my very first motorcycle in December of 2014. I said, what if I just get a few vintage motorcycles? So I had built the collection up from 4 or 5 to 26. And at that point, decided we need a motorcycle gallery and I need a right arm person. I had an interview with Stacy, which was about 90 minutes. The last 86 minutes of which were really unnecessary because I had decided after 4 minutes to ask her to join me.
Bobby is like a tornado, but not in a destructive way. He's this whirlwind of forceful, creative energy.
And then we went from 26 motorcycles up to 70.
Bobby did not want to stop buying motorcycles.
In order to do so, I felt we need a large facility. Let's do it. Let's really go for it. Let's build a big museum, a different museum than anybody else has in the moto space. So in less than 24 months, we've gone from construction to what you see today. And then at some point in the midst of that, Stacy and I began to see each other.
Bobby and I were strictly professional for the first few years. Neither one of us saw any of this coming.
They adore each other. You can tell they're in love. It's a very sweet thing to see.
I've got a partner in my life, and I have a partner in this venture in Stacy. And she is very important to me and very important to the museum.
It's been an incredible experience for me. I get to spend time every day with my best friend doing what we're both passionate about.
As he was collecting a lot of these beautiful historic motorcycles, I could see he was more interested in the people that were making them and the stories behind the bikes than the bikes themselves. I mean, the bikes are gorgeous. And so I think he slowly gravitated towards the custom bike because it's basically a person's story.
Max was injured in 2011, and during his convalescence, he basically, as a form of therapy, builds a small motorbike. And he finds that's his passion.
The phone rang from a clothing store that had one of my bikes in the window. And they said, hey, you know this guy, his name's Bobby. He saw one of your bikes and he'd like to talk to you about a motorcycle.
Now, Max is a rock star. He's the wunderkind of this industry.
If you go into a design school, you go to Yale, you go to SCIARC in Los Angeles, the guys who are interested in automotive design of any sort, they'll all talk about Max Hazen.
Bobby gave Max the freedom to do what he wants to do, the stability and the support. After that, he was kind of like out of the cage.
We have 5 Hazens in this museum.
His designs are light, they're humorous. The Black Knight, you know, it's evoking a knight in shining armor.
And if you notice, they're in the shape of an H, which stands for Hazen. We first met Craig at the Hand-Built show in Austin. When Stacy and I walked in, we saw this motorcycle by Craig called the Ambassador, which is hand-formed aluminum. And I turned to Stacy and I said, we need to acquire that motorcycle. It was one of those love at first sight moments. And once we acquired the Ambassador and publicized it, and there was a great deal of publicity, there was an explosion in interest about Craig and his work. Craig has been building motorcycles and working with motorcycles since a teenager. Craig is truly one of those prototypical heroes who works their whole life to become an overnight success.
Craig Rodsmith has a very good reputation as being one of the best fabricator designers out there. He has a tremendous Australian, Aussie kind of sense of humor, and that comes through too.
I got a call from Bobby. I thought he might have had buyer's regret or something, but he said, hey, I've got an idea to build another bike. I'm like, oh, wow, that's cool. And he came up with an idea. It was a bike called the Corlageur.
It's French for light body, and you look at it, it's like a sculpture with an engine attached.
A very thin board tracker style bike with a small BSA engine.
Probably the worst engine ever produced in Britain. The old expression, it couldn't pull the skin off a rice pudding. And yet he's made a remarkable bike out of that. Very, very talented young designer.
I've lived my life like this for so long. Right. By this point, Bobby and I had become very good friends. And I really started to trust him. He was encouraging me and pushing me. I had the means to live, feed my cat, feed myself.
I woke up in the middle of the night and I was leafing through the internet and I came across a motorcycle from the 1930s. And I thought, you know, something inspired by this is just perfect for Craig.
It's like early in the morning, yes, Bobby, what do you want? You're like, hey, I've got a really good idea for a motorcycle.
It's inspired by this German motorcycle called a Killinger and Freund.
When you got somebody that comes in that doesn't have, you know, that practical ability to build something, their mind's more open and more fertile, so they'll come up with these ideas.
I want us to build a cycle with the engine in the front wheel, which is basically unheard of.
I'm like, Bobby, I think that's a little bit out of my league. I think you got the wrong guy.
My reaction to his reaction was, then you're going to do it, because I'm going to take you, I'm going to facilitate you getting to the next level. Max has a very distinctive style. Max decided that he wanted to break out of that style. He came to me and he said, I want to build a racer to race at Bonneville. And I think he is testing himself. yourself in another zone. Because the real test of a racer is not how beautiful it looks, it's how fast it goes.
It's like a blessing for everyone who's had to go through all those struggles of trying to make things happen with nothing. And then all of a sudden someone's saying, you know what, if you could build a dream bike, what would it be? And go for it. All right, well, I said it's still just in primer.
Ah, Jesus Christ. Good God. Max is staggering. What is the record for the class we're in?
About 196.
Okay, so if it starts with a 2, that's good.
Yeah.
There had to be a different feeling in building this.
You know, that was something that was with me every single step of the way. Every weld, you know that it's got to go really fast and that you're the one that's going to be on it, too.
Right. Should I jump on it?
You should hop on it.
Okay. Oh, Jesus Christ. This is fantastic. It's a rush just to be on it.
Every time I see it.
Intoxicating. Wow. I sort of get the feeling that this is like a child. You know, that this is a being.
This one I definitely feel a little more attached to than the other ones. Also because it's built around me. Having someone put their trust in you, I think that's the best motivation out there. Well, I do think we should all sign it, though, somewhere. You know?
Yes. Are you cold this morning?
Just a little.
You want my gloves?
No. I'm fine. I've got your hand. That's all I need.
This is one of the biggest synagogues I've ever seen. We are here for a meeting with Dirk Arleking. Dirk's in the process of building the third in a series of magnificent custom cycles. The first 2 are the Black Phantom and the White Phantom.
Wow.
Oh my, this is unbelievable. This is the neatest shop I've ever seen in my life. And those are all your awards up there. From racing?
Yes, from racing, 300.
300 trophies?
300, yes. Wow. Markus, du könntest aber auch den Nick holen, reinholen. Dass der Nick das mit übersetzt, dass das ein Rohbau ist.
Wow.
This complete thing will be leather.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah?
I think the 2 colors with contrast will make the seat jump out at your eyes.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes? Dirk came to Dallas when the 2 motorcycles were installed. He started sobbing. He was so overtaken by emotion.
Die Bikes, die Show ist, ich kann jetzt mal. Es sind Emotionen. Es ist perfekt inszeniert. Es ist, man kann es nicht beschreiben, was dieser Mann da geschaffen hat. Das kann man nicht. Das ist das Ankommen in diesem Bereich. Also mehr geht nicht.
You can't get even higher, and it's staged perfectly in the museum. For him, this is like.
Ja, es ist mein Leben.
The final. It's like being the king of the motor scene if you have your bikes in Bobby's halls.
The custom industry really has no national borders. We have to pet this dog.
We gotta ask.
Can we pet?
Maybe.
Derek, he was like a 6-year-old kid at dinner, and at one point he got up and he went, Bobby Haas. Like,
Great.
he was just jumping out of his skin to show us what he had created. You try to promote yourself, promote the museum as the Hall of Fame for custom builders that has an international reputation. The strange thing is the builders we're working with now, virtually without exception and without coordination with each other, are saying that. We heard it from builders all over the world now.
I do need your gloves.
Okay, no problem.
Or I need to stick my hands in.
Somewhere warm?
I think I've seen these before.
I stole them. Is that better?
Yes.
Bobby came up with the idea to build this bike we call the Killer. This was a unique motorcycle because it had a 3-cylinder radial engine. The engine was inside the front wheel. I'm like, all right, we'll buy a 3-cylinder radial engine. Couldn't find one. Go figure. You can't fucking buy them. So I'm like, Bobby, I'm gonna have to make this engine. I'm worried now. I didn't want to let him down. I didn't want to let myself down. Bobby really pushes you hard.
Hey Bobby, Stace, as you see, remember the front wheel, which has all the space for the engine.
There's so much satisfaction in just taking some metal, and there's nothing like building something with your own two hands.
Hey Bobby, Stacey, sorry I've got some laryngitis at the moment. Probably should shut up, I talk too much. But it's coming along really well.
I'm in this really fortunate position, having Bobby as a friend and as a patron.
I just love this. I've never made an engine before. I finally got the whole engine. Made everything except for the cylinders and the pistons and the rods. Otherwise, we did everything else.
I love to facilitate these great artists moving to the next level, creating masterpieces like nobody else has ever done.
It's important that we look outside of ourselves and outside of our narrow frame of reference. Now, Bobby does that. He's a big thinker.
My first profession was Wall Street. And in Wall Street, the scorecard is money. And if you're not in it for the money, you're in the wrong business. Then I was a photographer with National Geographic, for which I had no training.
So he goes from being a Wall Street guy to being a photographer. I mean, that's just a leap of imagination just in and of itself.
When I bought my first camera, I was 47 years old. I didn't own a camera. I said, which is the shutter button? That's no bullshit. That's the way it happened.
But if you go and you do that at a level of excellence that is celebrated around the world, then you have to think, well, this guy is really taking big leaps.
It's true at this museum. I've never curated a museum in my life. At the age of 64, when I bought my first motorcycle, I asked the dealer, which side is the throttle and which side is the clutch? Now we're way ahead of where we thought we would ever be in terms of our prominence in the industry, our being the mecca of custom motorcycles in the world.
If Bobby did nothing else, his legacy is secure with those custom bikes that he's collected and commissioned.
And I realized with each of the careers, I'm in it and I really don't know what I'm doing, but I'm willing to be a very intensive student.
Yes, Bobby's a Renaissance man. He's done a lot. He will do a lot more. You can tell by his intelligence and the breadth of his curiosity. That's what put him up in the air taking photographs, but taking them better than anybody else, you know.
When I was taking aerial photographs, I thought, what is great about this is I'm not doing it for the money. I'm doing it for the art. I didn't take any compensation for my photography. And the same is true of this museum. We're not trying to make money here. We are trying to lose a certain amount of money, and we're doing a wonderful job at that. The money that I earned from my investment career, it printed a currency that allowed me to do other things that are pure pleasure and pure passion. When I was in private equity, I was doing it to accumulate capital. And the main beneficiary of that was me. The difference with art is you're trying to create a net of beneficiaries as wide as possible. The people who take in your art, who visit your exhibits, the builders whose work is in here. And it gives me an opportunity to do what I'm trying to model myself after, and that is the Medici family, banking family that found great fortune and then applied a sizable percentage of that to fostering the careers of people like Michelangelo and Leonardo da Vinci. And that's part of what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to take a zone of the moto world, which basically has been ignored, and be that outside force that fosters the art, fosters the development of the industry. I feel very fortunate that I can be a patron of the careers of great artists, custom builders like Walt Siegel. Walt has a specialty with Ducati-based racers, and he's considered in that niche probably the best in the world. I think we have potentially the greatest moto sculpture series under commission that's ever been done by a great, great sculptor by the name of Serge Bueno. Christian Sosa, he's quite a talented builder. We have Space Traveler, one of his great works, and we have commissioned another one. Phenomenally creative individual.
That's how it all starts.
Michael LaFontaine is a brilliant builder. He's driven internally. He's driven to please an audience of one. It took Michael 7 years to complete the Kawasaki W1R Racer.
So the light enters through those triangulated windows.
Jay Donovan built Manta as a 23-year-old. He is a real Mozart. I've never had a design session on a motorcycle where posted on the drawing board as a quote by Plato. Jay will be a superstar in this industry. Shinya Kimura, he's world-renowned, one of the legends of custom building. The Shinya style, which is also called the Zero style, is world-famous. Hey, man. We do like to have a lot of diversity in the custom shop. You have geographic diversity, you have diversity in terms of style.
Shall we get this open?
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Whoa! We are trying to push the edges of what we have here. We're trying to satisfy the singe the eyebrow test. Does the motorcycle singe your eyebrows when you look at it? Whoa. Hello.
This is a result of my fantasy, time travel. Maybe a little bit weird.
Right.
Yeah.
We're all a little bit weird.
While I'm building this bike, I always watching your book.
You were looking at my photo books?
Yeah, every day.
I knew I had given you the photo books. I didn't know the photo books were part of the inspiration, so there's a little bit of the photo in there.
It helped a lot. Yeah, this is my happiest moment to see the motorcycle putting here.
Throughout my whole life and death was a real thing. I went through a whole series of medical crises. In my 20s, almost 50 years ago, I had my first grand mal epileptic seizure, and I struggled with epilepsy for quite a few years. It's like being hit by lightning. You just don't know when it's going to happen. There's the aftermath. You have amnesia, cranial pain. It's a frightening episode. Later, it was discovered that I had a malformation in the brain that was probably a trigger for the epilepsy. The initial diagnosis was this is a brain tumor. We recommend having it carved out, which chances are this is going to leave you impaired. And I said, well, that doesn't sound like a good idea. So I passed on the surgery. But 6 months later, the mass had shrunk just a little bit, which meant it was not a malignant brain tumor. It was something called AVM. The blood vessels are all tangled up there, and they can burst or bleed at any time. And I was put on medication to knock down the incidence of the seizures. It was discovered that I also had a heart defect that produces thousands of episodes of atrial fibrillation. It is a near-death experience, because your heart is off the grid. It's not behaving. And if it goes from atrial to ventricular, boom, that's it. Game over. You realize at any moment your heart can stop. The way we opted to treat it was to insert a device in my chest, an implantable cardiac defibrillator. So my heartbeat is regulated, and then if it goes wild, there's a device that can deliver a shock from inside my chest and get you out of the danger zone. It plays with your head. For sure, you think about death all the time because the actuality of a condition that can cause that is right there in your chest. That's probably one of the reasons why I pursued some dangerous things, like hanging out a helicopter. It was sort of like, all right, you didn't get me with the epilepsy, you didn't get me with the brain abnormality, you didn't get me with the heart defect. I'll decide how I'm going out. I'll decide when I'm going out.
Hey, Bobby, Stacy, how you doing? Have to apologize for my voice again. Still bothering me. I'll tell you about that later on. But I just wanted to show you what we got done so far.
Halfway through building the killer, I started to lose my voice, and I thought I had bronchitis or something like that.
I'm gonna do the same with the front, a little grill so we can see the engine and everything.
But it went on for a while, so I went to the hospital and went to the doctors, and I had larynx cancer. Yeah, I'll never forget that day. Sitting in my car for 2 hours driving home was like, that seemed like a lifetime. I thought about a lot of things. And first person I called was Bobby. Not just because we were doing this bike together, I believed he had a right to know, but as my friend.
I got a call from Craig, and he said, I need to talk to you alone. I want you to know I have cancer. And we don't know if it's metastasized. I don't know if I can finish this build. I just don't know where we're going on this.
So the August event is Bonneville Speed Week, which is the big one. You have no idea how the aerodynamics are going to feel once you get up around 200 miles an hour. I've known about Bonneville since I was a little kid. I'm aware, and I'm aware of the dangers. I've spoken with my wife, I've spoken with my dad, because I do have a track record of doing some pretty wild stuff in the past. It's kind of landed me in some trouble. I remember it like it was yesterday. It was the end of the day. We'd been riding for 5 or 6 hours, flying through the woods, and next thing you know, I got sideways, flew into some trees, 40, 50 miles an hour, and
I could kind of hear the snapping of ligaments, the sound of the cracking helmet, and bouncing off the trees. It was the worst sound ever. I remember just opening my eyes and being on the ground, and the bike was off in the distance.
I broke part of my tibia, but I tore all the ligaments.
I was having nightmares right after the surgeries.
The hardest thing was accepting it. Never had something really show me in an instant that, I'm frail. It was the first time I opened my eyes and saw that, every day is an opportunity. Fear is one of the biggest motivators. If there's something that I want to do and it scares me, I'm immensely motivated to do it. I know that it'll be that much more satisfying when I accomplish it.
Like most people, I think you feel invincible. And then something happens and it's like, wow, you understand the human frailty thing. I'm like, well, Bobby, I'll still get the bike finished. He's like, well, fuck that. It's like, we're gonna look after you first. I'm like, well, I'm not used to this.
I told him at that time, you'll get past this. I just know it. And we'll complete this project. But if we don't, I said, the hell with the project. I don't care about the project, I care about you. And we'll get past this.
It was just really heartwarming that somebody gave a shit that much. It pushed me even harder to try and make the killer even better. So instead of letting it beat me down, it sort of lifted me up. I know that sounds weird, but it's the way it worked. And I think a big part, when you know you've got people that care about you, that were supportive, it was really good. I had a great doctor. Fortunately, didn't need radiation or chemotherapy. I had laser surgery.
He had the operation. It was successful. It had not spread, and he was able to pick up the tools again. And it changed our relationship. When I look at the killer, I say, thank you. You've brought a new dimension into my life.
This bike that I built, to me, it was the biggest, most epic bike I'd ever built. So to get through this, realize along the way you picked up this really good friend that was a better friend than you probably ever realized was a wonderful thing.
Getting to Bonneville, it's surreal. When you get there, it feels like you're on the moon. Taking the bike out of the van, I realized the reality of what I'd made. And I'm like, okay, now you gotta go ride this thing. And that was something to swallow right there. Now I gotta go crawl into this monster that I'd made and give it gas down the salt. I find that the biggest fear to me is like an hour before you run, because that's when you have time to think. It's just you. Stand out of the bike and you're just sitting there. And you realize it's in your control, but it's not in your control.
Hey, feeling fucking nervous. It's a good thing. Yeah. Got my full attention.
No one likes failing, but no one likes failing and then ending up in the hospital. I've got my wife who's pregnant, and I've got to be at my sister's wedding in 2 days. I'm trying to block all that stuff out. I'm just sitting on the start line thinking, just please don't crash this bike. I didn't anticipate being scared, and I was scared. You feel vulnerable on it. You're laying down, the handlebars are tiny, and you're inside something. For as far as you're concerned, you're inside it. That's all you see is this little carbon fiber tub.
Cycle 5161.
Keeping the bike straight was such a challenge. I couldn't stop the shaking. Found that if I pushed my wrists and my arms out into the fairing, I could actually stabilize the bike. Oh, I can hold it straight, and then I just opened up the throttle and it just took off. I was able to actually push it. I knew the bike hooked up and went fast, but to be honest with you, I thought it was going to be a throwaway run.
Go, Sabbath, yeah!
Get a weight on things, listen. Crack that open for me, man.
Yeah. What's happening, man? Just gonna get the slip, impound this bitch.
Fucking congratulations. No more driving for me.
We're 207 average. We were driving over there.
That's ridiculous.
good. We did it.
You did it indeed.
Yeah.
Congratulations. Oh. I am financing racers for Max Hazen and Keo. I just felt like I was on the sidelines and I wasn't in the game. I need to get in the game. We started with the notion that there are 44 motorcycles in the custom shop, but we don't have any sidecars. And I ride sidecars, so maybe I could actually ride something that's in here. We said, let's be inspired by the URS, famous racing sidecar, which has a history of losing a couple of the racers along the way, which is not going to be the case with ours. I got on a motorcycle for the first time when I was advanced in my years, my 60s. To me, a sidecar is just comfortable. It's the only way I've learned how to ride. These are all very early racers. If you look at these motorcycles, you notice they are beat up. Once I saw Max on the Salt, part of me said, I need to put myself at risk a little bit too. We're going to ride it.
Right.
Whether we do it once, twice, or 5 times.
We build it right, it'll get along pretty good.
I don't know if the rider was hurt, maybe even killed by the crash that caused the dents. I do know this, racing itself is a life-threatening sport. I want to push this bike, this sidecar with Craig, maybe not to its ultimate limits. I want to push it to my limits. This is a 1951 Triumph Bonneville Salt Flats Racer. It was raced by a 13-year-old kid by the name of Bobby Sekursian, and he went 122 miles an hour on this bike. Today, if you took a 13-year-old kid, you put him on the back of a motorcycle, you took him to Bonneville and said, go as fast as you can, and he went over 100 miles an hour, you would be arrested for child endangerment. We're designing the sidecar racer now. Either I get on the Salt, or I get on the Salardia Juni, or I get somewhere.
Wow, I didn't know you were gonna do that.
There's a sense of mortality. There is a sense of vulnerability. But as a 13-year-old kid, he raced at Bonneville. I thought, you know, if a 13-year-old kid can do it and put his life at risk, then I certainly can try to do it.
How fast are y'all wanting this to go?
We'll let you know later. Just get it on the Salt and ride it.
At first, with this sidecar, I thought, well, yeah, this will be great, you know, I'm in. Then as I started building the bike, I started to think, I've never built a sidecar before. Well, I'm building a sidecar outfit for one of my best friends to ride really fast. This is a responsibility now. Keeps me awake at night.
Shit, it's cold out there.
Well, it's January
in Chicago.
Yeah, right.
Hey, brother.
We still have quite a bit more to do, but I wanted to get to the point where you could sit on it, feel the handlebars, the controls, the rear set, because I know you've never ridden in this position.
I've never ridden in this position.
So,
no, I've ridden in a Harley straight-up position.
You ready?
Jesus Christ. I must tell you, it looks dangerous to me. It looks pretty fucking fast, is what it looks.
Where do you feel comfortable with your foot on the foot peg?
Right there, in the arch.
Okay. I'm going to shorten the brake lever, and I'm going to adjust it down there. Once you've got the helmet on, I'm just going to cut that out so you fit in there. This is going to be your line of sight. Right.
Yeah, that doesn't feel bad.
Okay.
The other night, 1 o'clock in the morning, I literally sat bolt upright, and I thought, my God, the sidecar could fly. Flying a sidecar is when the sidecar lifts up and you have the risk of turning upside down. I got to get to Craig. When I started to probe with you about the safety, and we didn't seem to be right on top of it, it accentuated my nervousness.
I'm confident in what I've done, not overconfident.
There's no fucking way I'm gonna accept that. I wanna know that we don't have a risk on flying the car. How do you know we don't have a risk? It's a flat pan. I'm relying on you to protect my life. We have to forget we're friends.
Yeah, I was maybe focusing too much on the performance.
You know, maybe there's nothing wrong with the cycle, but the only way I know that is when I push you. What is preventing us from being in a situation where we fly the car?
Flying a sidecar is usually something that happens when you're making a turn. And we're not going to be doing that.
No.
But a simple air dam in front, and that'll divert the air around the bottom of the chassis.
Did we have an air dam already, or are we adding it?
We're adding that now.
Well, that's a feature we are adding.
That absolutely. On blacktop, theoretically, it will do close to 160 miles an hour. So that gives us a window of error, for want of another word, of I think we're going to get the record. I think it's perfectly obtainable.
You know, it's interesting. We have different objectives at this point. My objective right now is to ride this bike well and get off with the same number of limbs I got onto it with. I have self-preservation objectives right now, but they're going to give way to just pure racing objectives.
Yeah.
I like this. I like this.
We took it for just a quick shakedown solo without the sidecar.
You sounded beautiful, man.
Oh,
You
yeah.
took off here like a bat out of hell. Holy.
I didn't even...
Yeah, quarter throttle.
Quarter
Yep.
throttle.
Yep.
It went.
Yep. Good.
Holy shit.
He said this is made for a young Italian racer, like 25 years old. Someone who could be my grandson.
I'm exhausted just watching you put it on. Our primary goal today is get Bobby confident and fluid with shifts and just getting used to riding a sidecar fast. We've both kind of got a personal goal. We want to make 100 miles an hour today. A lot of people think, oh, a sidecar, it's got an extra wheel, it's safe. I'm like, no, you're dragging this odd wheel. A sidecar to me isn't a motorcycle with an extra wheel. It's a car with a wheel missing. Hang on, let's get the glasses
Oh,
first.
my glasses. I had 97 at the quarter mile.
97 at the quarter mile.
Right. Yeah. We've got to concentrate on the shifts.
When you're going on 100 miles an hour, to get your foot in the right position.
Just bang it. Just bang it.
You think I ought to go with the heel or with the toe?
I'm a toe. I don't have a heel.
Right. I think he's going to have a harder time trying to toe shift.
Yeah.
He's so used to heel shifting that
Do you get pedicures?
Pedicures?
Yeah, you don't get pedicures. See, that's why I won't use the toe. I mean, racing is fun, but you can't ruin your pedicure. No.
Let's take a break. I think the best thing, rather than take another run on that, if we're going to use the other
No,
bike,
I think we switch over to the
switch
fat
up
bike.
now. do you think it is?
I think 101.
Yes.
We did it. We did it.
Time. At least
101.
Now, can we go home now?
We can eat now. I couldn't have done it without you, Coach. Get over here. Give me some love.
It was all
I
you,
love
brother.
you, man.
I love you too.
I love you. You're my brother. I was always fascinated by motorcycles in the sense that I thought guys who rode motorcycles are cool guys. And guys in gangs are cool guys. And Easy Rider's a cool movie, but I was into my 60s. I do not have a good sense of balance, so I thought I'm destined to just admire motorcycles from the side of the road. And then I read an article about a Russian sidecar motorcycle called a Ural. Craze sweeps US for older, easier riders. So I saw the older and the easier, and I thought, well, that's for me. I also simply love the idea the rider wants to share the thrill with the person in the sidecar. And then I was attracted to the notion of writing a book about a moto gang, about the sense of family that binds together the members of a moto gang. How when they use the word brother, they mean it. I was embedded for purposes of writing this book, which I did. All of the members were veterans. I remember the first time we met.
I was cleaning the bar at the clubhouse, and I also made a comment about who the hell's BMW that was out front of our clubhouse. You asked me some stuff, and seemed like it was easier to talk to you than a lot of people.
Sarge volunteered after 9/11, and he gets sent off to Iraq. He doesn't talk a lot about that. And for whatever reason, we bonded right away. I didn't have any brothers left by the time I left home, so I was in desperate need of a brother.
I was in a pretty bad place when we first met. I was going through quite a bit. When you get to have a bond, and our thing is motorcycles, I mean, we'll ride 60 miles, 110 miles or whatever, get off our bikes, and what are we doing? Even if we're hurting, we're smiling. You're with your brother, and it doesn't get any better than being on a motorcycle. I mean, maybe for you and your BMW, I don't know, but you know what I mean?
Sarge and I have become very, very deep friends. And by the time I came out of this period of being embedded, I was crazy about motorcycles. I think the word brother, when I was called a brother by the gang, resonated with me so deeply because it was a sense of family. And there was a huge family vacuum in my life.
I'm like you, we come from families that, man, it was a rocky road. It's hard to count on people.
I came out of my childhood not trusting people. And then I was fortunate to have successes. Then you learn to be suspicious of people wanting something from you. I was always a loner. I don't have a lot of friends, but the ones I have, I'm very close to.
A lot of things trigger me. And, you know, we talked about it, car alarms, just going to the grocery store with so many people, and it's like a rat race. I park in a handicapped spot at the grocery store, and I get stared at. Why is this guy parking in a handicapped spot? They don't realize that, man, it's taken me 2 weeks just to get to that spot.
As he went through the up and down that PTSD subjects you to, and as he went through a recent death of someone that he loved, Sarge turned to me. That's one of the reasons I love you, that you put that kind of trust in me.
I'll always be there. And I've always told you, I tell you that every time I see you. I'd do anything in the world for you.
I never had brotherhood in my life like I do today.
Oh, I got something for you. I want you to have these. These are patches that was on one of my uniforms when I was in Iraq.
I think that breaks that people experience either heal or they don't heal. These are on you.
Yeah.
I think you try to fill the vacuum that results with whatever busted it in the first place.
And you can, whatever you like, but I want you to have them. All right? You're my brother.
I love you.
I love you, bro.
I was married for 47 years. Towards the end of that, it came time to move on to another phase of my life.
I had just gotten out of a relationship that didn't work out, and I had put personal relationships on the shelf. I was never able to find a balance between being the mom I wanted to be, having the career, and a romantic relationship. I just didn't think it was possible.
I wasn't prepared for any other relationship in my life. I didn't feel I needed another relationship in my life.
With Bobby, something new happened. I allowed myself to become vulnerable, and I trusted him.
I did not expect that Stacy would walk into my life, but she did.
What Bobby and I have between us, I never believed existed, and he has definitely changed my life forever.
I found somebody I adore and who loves me when I was 70. This is the family I found much later in life. This museum is the home I built with Stacy. I can feel your knee.
That's on purpose.
Good. Keep that up. Stacy caught me in a point in my life where there were a lot of broken pieces in my life at that point. She's been an enormous part of the healing process that I've been through. The one fear that I still have, and I will always have, no matter what I do, is the fear of failure.
You know, my dad used to tell me about failure. I may have told you this before. But I would come home as a little girl and I'd be all upset about something, losing a soccer game or a gymnastics meet or something. And he would say, it's okay, you're gonna do better next time. And I would look at him and say, how can you say that to me? Look at all the medals on the wall. He goes, all the medals on the wall are great, but you know what you don't see? All the ones I didn't win. So I don't fear failure. I just try to do my best, but I do fear the things that I have absolutely no control over, like your racing. I have no control over the outcome of that or you doing that or any part of it.
I will train and train and train and train. I won't have what these other guys have, 20, 30 years of experience of doing it, but I'll have 20, 30 months of doing it.
Those guys crash after 20, 30 years too.
Yeah. The merry-go-round has jammed to a stop. Our lives have jammed to a stop. We're not going anywhere. We're sheltered in place. Today is, I believe, the 14th day of self-imposed isolation for me. Day 18, I think it's day number 20. I think this is day 25 or 26.
Museum's closed for now. I mean, it's really sad. I've been there a couple of times and it's just so It makes me sad to walk in there and just see all of the beautiful bikes and everything that we've created, and it's just sitting there.
Normally, I'm a pretty happy, jolly, optimistic guy, but this sucks.
It's an issue as to how do we race. Bonneville will probably be canceled. El Mirage will probably be canceled. And the best we can do is to go to a private track 30 miles from Dallas. Yesterday, we heard from the authorities at the Ennis racetrack, the general manager, that the track was closing because of governmental restrictions. The sidecar is ready. Craig has finished it. It's been tested, and it's sitting in a shop in Chicago, and we're not even sure we can get it down here because of travel restrictions. So it's fair to say that our plans are in suspended animation.
We're so close. We're right here. And it's like, now somebody just took it away. And it's like, you know, kid with a lollipop. It's like, give me that. Like, oh shit.
Life was not designed to be lived with the specter of death over your head. That's not how you create your dreams. It's meant to be lived in a very joyful way, where we pursue our dreams and our passions. I knew I had this movie of my family that went back to the 1930s, before I was born. And just because in the course of the pandemic, I've been thinking a great deal about family and death and things that everybody is focused on, I decided to watch this movie. I've had the same vision of my father for 50 years. A very, very tough, authoritarian figure. I admired a lot about him, but our relationship was a difficult relationship. Joy was sapped out of the house when I was a boy. When I was 16, I said, I can't take this anymore. I got to get out. I found a room in a rooming house within walking distance of the high school. I was estranged from my dad for 40 years. But when I watched the home movie, I saw a very loving, very carefree, very sweet man, incredibly handsome. And the same for my uncle. I saw the joy in their life, unadulterated joy. And I saw just how much they loved each other. They adored each other. In the 5 or 6 times I watched it before that, I never saw it before. And I thought to myself as I'm watching my father and my uncle and my grandfather, you have no idea what lies ahead for you. When I was a little boy, my father and my uncle were out one night. They came back to my uncle's home, and my uncle's home had burned to the ground. And his 2 children had died in the fire. I remember what I was wearing when I heard that news. I was wearing brown corduroy pants. We had built a snowman in the backyard. And I remember my father going outside and leaning his head against the snowman and crying. I'd never seen my father cry before. So I can remember that. I was only 7 or 8 years old. I was simply too young to understand how an event like that changes a person, shatters a family. The tragedy shattered the family. My father, who was my role model, was shattered by that experience. He became a very tough man, and I became a very tough man. But I saw when I watched that film, that's not who he was inherently. That's who he became. after the tragedy. That man was my father, too. I wasn't born yet, but that man was my father, too. And I fell in love with my father all over again. And I really think for the first time, I'm at peace with loving that man.
You like the speed, you crave the speed, you pursue the speed, but do you need the speed? It's fair to say I don't need the speed right now. If I race, I have to have a pit crew out there. Even if we wear masks and gloves, we are taking a risk with everybody's life. And then I thought about Stacy.
Why would I take a risk that I bring back a deadly virus to Stacy? And Stacy could carry it home to her two beautiful children.
I don't feel joyful about racing. I don't feel exuberant about racing. I don't feel the fire in my belly.
It's kind of sucked the joy out of it. And, you know, just everything that's going on.
Let's just shut it down for the year 2020.
Of course, I'm relieved that he's not racing, but I'm also, I know it's a little bit disappointing.
You shouldn't do this because you're selfish, and you shouldn't do this if you're vain. Those are terrible reasons to do it.
I got a late start, but we're making up for lost time. I can't risk the family I found much later in life. We need to chat about your favorite topic. What happens in the event of my death? Right now, the game plan is the museum would remain open for about 3 years. But as we get into the third year, the plan is to liquidate the collection. But there's a flaw in that plan. The custom cycles are precious to the people who have designed and built them. They're like their children. And if you sell them to the highest bidder, those motorcycles can end up with people who stick them in a garage or buy them in 1 year and flip them to somebody else in the next year. And that just doesn't seem right. I think we need to do something different. Welcome to this private event originating from the Haas Moto Museum. As I stare at the faces on my iPad, I see great differences within this group of elite custom builders. You are in your 20s and 30s and 40s and 50s, and I am in my 70s. We hail from Germany, France, Austria, Japan, Australia, Canada, and of course, the USA. But there is more that binds us together than the differences that pull us apart. We are united by the bonds of passion, our passion for motorcycles and for creating truly unique masterpieces. for which there was no blueprint to guide our hands. And we are united by the bond that has arisen from our contributions to this museum, which in the span of just 2 years has become known as the Hall of Fame for custom builders. It is mind-boggling to think that just over 4 years ago, I didn't know any of you. In the past few years, I've heard from virtually all of you how this museum has changed your life forever. But the person whose life has changed the most is me, not you. 4 years ago, my personal life was in complete disarray. And professionally, I was thinking of retiring after long careers in finance and as a Nat Geo photographer. And then I met Stacy, and everything changed. After Stacy and I built the Dragon Gallery together, the opportunity presented itself to take over the cavernous space where the museum now sits. As you know, we decided to forge ahead, and I opened the first meeting with this brash statement: we are going to build the finest moto museum in the world. In this bizarre, upside-down world where we focus every day on the pandemic, tragedy seems to lurk around every corner. I'm reminded of the novel A Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens. It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. It was the season of light, it was the season of darkness. It is the best of times, as we can now claim the honor of being described by the curators of the Guggenheim exhibit as a museum like no other. And yet it is the worst of times, when we must keep our doors padlocked. We are reminded on a daily basis that life is finite, and therefore it is never too early to begin to focus on our legacy. I began to focus on my own legacy many years ago as the result of a series of health crises. And now it's time to think of my legacy as the founder of this museum. What is to become of the masterpieces that you forged in your shops and which have come to rest in this museum? I promised each of you that I would be announcing today a major new initiative, and now it's time to deliver on that promise. I've often said that I did not consider myself to be the owner of your creations, that I was merely their custodian. I once told Keo and Kat that their custom racers were the children of their hands, the children of their souls, and that I would take good care of their children. And therefore, I've decided that when I am no longer around to serve as responsible custodian, the children of your hands, the children of your souls, should go home to you. I have revised my estate plan to provide that upon my death, the creations that you shaped with your hands will be given back to you as my gifts. And then you alone will be in control of the destiny of your children. Rest assured that I'm not planning to exit anytime soon. I'm feeling fine, I'm aging well, and I have a very young lover. So you'll have to wait a bit longer before your kids come home to you. But come home they will. Max, this means that one day, instead of my having the largest collection of Haysons in the world, you will. Craig, you're gonna need a bigger shop to house the Killer and the Ambassador and Corlager and even the HRS sidecar. Jay, even if you have to smuggle them across the Canadian border, one day Manta and Stingray will return to their native land. Keo and Kat, we will keep your three children together. Cherry Blossom and Gecko and Galaxy will return home one day. Dirk, the Black and White Phantoms and the Gute Geist will be reunited in Germany. And the same for the rest of you. Serge and Shake, Walt and Shinya and Sophie and Christian, and Michael, upon my passing, your custom creations will come home to you as my gifts. Allow me to close by saying that I think of this gifting program as a well-deserved recognition of artists whose hands are so talented, whose minds are so brilliant, and whose dedication is so extraordinary. It is an acknowledgement that my name is on the front of this building only because I put it there. But the museum has reached the lofty pedestal on which it sits only because you put it there. Thank you.
Wow, Bobby.
Thank you, Bobby.
Way to make a bunch of grown men cry.
Just want to say thank you. You know, it changed everything. Forget about getting the bikes back. It changed my life.
My joy, my joy. Craig, how you doing up there in Chicago?
I'm lost for words, which you know me well enough. That's normally not a problem for me. Thank you, brother. I love you.
I love you too, brother. You know, I'm thinking 4 years ago, I was having a lot of trouble finding people in my life who loved me and whom I loved back. Now I can't even fit them on a Zoom screen together because there's so many. So that's progress. That's progress.
Bye, Casey. Bye. Bye, Bobby. Bye. Bye, guys.
Thank you, darling. I love you so much. I'm not a great guy. I don't think I'm inherently a sweet person. All of these relationships have given me an opportunity to find my better self. I love Stacy. I love the custom builders. I love motorcycles. I love everything about the museum. That's why I get up at 3 o'clock in the morning and start working on the museum. I am a lucky bastard. I gotta tell you, I love it, brother. I absolutely love it. But we can't call it an HRS anymore. That was a project name. Now it's alive. Hey, Johnny, you think you could rustle up a name vinyl for Mr. Fahrenheit? This thing should be on a track. That's why we built it. We didn't build this to be an ornament in the museum. We're gonna race this fucking thing, all right?